Well, good evening, everyone, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to stop by. We were in Montana, then in Oregon, and we are on our way back to the East Coast, and with a few stops on the way. But it was nice to have this little stop between Oregon and Milwaukee. So I played this song years ago. I remember at a harp event in Seattle, and somebody came up to me and said, "You know, after listening to this song, I just got the feeling that everything was just going to be okay, despite all the problems in the world." And we hope that when we play music, we remind ourselves that there's places where we are okay, and that we do create beautiful things on the world, and that we are creating harmony and beauty. No, and that's what I try to do with this instrument. I was raised in South America, in Paraguay. It's a landlocked country, right, south of Bolivia by Argentina and Brazil. It's one of the least known countries in South America because it's a little bit smaller of a country. And this is the national folk instrument of that country. This is an instrument that was basically a continuation of a Spanish or European Baroque harp that was introduced in the 1600s to the native people of Paraguay. The Jesuits were the missionaries that were assigned this region of southern Paraguay, northern Argentina, and they are the ones who introduced the instrument. So the tradition was passed on, and it kind of like took on a new zest and a new vitality, I guess, because the native people from Paraguay, they had never played string instruments. So this was a whole new concept for them. And they loved music. I mean, the missionaries figured that out right away. One of them wrote in one of his chronicles, he said, "We should have brought an orchestra. We would have been much better off, you know." And but they taught music, and they were very good musicians that traveled, that came to South America. And so there was a wonderful tradition was started. We beat the Guinness record now in Paraguay with 420 people playing this harp together. I mean, not mine, each one with their own harp at the same time. And so it's a very popular tradition there. So it was normal for a little boy growing up in Paraguay to want to play the harp. You know, it's not a girl's instrument like it is in the States. It's a boy's instrument, dominantly. It's been. So the style that I grew up playing is called Paraguayan polka. This is the folk style that I grew up as a kid. And it's interesting for United States because we play with two different rhythms at the same time. We keep a very steady 3/4, but our melodies are always in 6/8. There's a little syncopation going on, and that's characteristic. People get up and dance to this style of music. Music is always part of a context, you know. So if you hear this type of music in Paraguay, people start going, a couple dancing like this, you know. There's a lot of dances where the lady is very cute and the guy tries to pursue her, you know, going around like this, and she's like, "No, I don't want to dance with you." So he kind of shows off, you know, going down, you know, things like that. And eventually they dance together. And you know, I was motivated to practice music always because there was a purpose for the music. It wasn't that I was thinking, oh, someday I'm going to be a performer and make a living playing music. That has never crossed my mind. For me, it was always about participating, either playing at church, or the serenata. That was one of the most notorious ones. Serenata is the serenade. When it's somebody's birthday, you know, if it's a girl that you like, then you take her a serenata. And you surprise her, you know, before 6 o'clock, before her waking time, with playing a song outside, you know, outside her window is the idea. And so we would practice with our friends. And I was one of the shy guys, so I never took a serenata. But I was happy to join into the scene because it was always very exciting. And there was always a guy with a lot of guts, you know, and he was going to recite a poem or say something beautiful to the girl and see if she would fall in love, you know. I mean, you remember in the past there was no texting, right? So you had to do everything in person, right? So anyways, it was fun because 5 o'clock in the morning we wake up. We had to, you know, it was still dark, and in Paraguay, you can imagine this old-time kind of looking it's town with cobblestone streets where the dogs still roam a little bit free, you know. And so they would come and bark at you, and we always carried some rocks in our pockets just in case, because I carried the harp, and that was a little more. The dogs barked more at me because I had the harp, and then we never know what would happen. Did the girl? You know, did the mother respond positively and invite us for breakfast? Did the father come in and say, "Thank you guys very much, you can go," you know? Or did the girl really fall in love with the guy who took the serenade, or with one who was playing the harp in the back, you know? Well, here's a little love song for you. So that's a little introduction to Paraguay. You know, this is a diatonic instrument. I don't know if you noticed that I raise and lower little levers when I play. The instrument that arrived from Spain did not have these little levers. No, it was a very simple harp. It had the strings on the side of this neck, and the Paraguayans came up with the idea of changing the neck so the string would go through the middle. They eventually changed the wooden pegs to guitar tuning pegs. In the 1980s, they started installing the levers so you can get two sounds, two notes per string, right? In a classical harp, you can do that with pedals, but here we have to use the levers in a folk harp. No, that's the difference. And well, in memory of the days when this harp was just introduced, I'll play something from Ennio Morricone. Do you remember the movie The Mission from the late 80s? Were you guys around in those days? Looks like a young crowd here, no? Late 80s, there was a movie called The Mission. Jeremy Iron and I think Robert De Niro were two missionaries of the Jesuits in the jungles of Paraguay. There were these scenes with this beautiful waterfall. And there's a gorgeous, beautiful soundtrack from that film, and I'm just playing little bits and pieces of it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to give you a little tour of Latin America with harp music. I'm going to start with our neighboring country, the biggest country in South America, Brazil. And my wife is from Brazil. She's Brazilian, kind of on the border with Paraguay. So she kind of has both countries, one foot in each country, but she prefers Brazil. And they speak Portuguese there. And Brazil had the largest immigration of people from Africa in the world. More than what came to the United States, ended up in Brazil. So their influence in the music of Brazil is very dominant in many ways. Everybody gets up, whether you're Portuguese descent, Brazilian, African descent, whatever background you're from in the Brazilian world, you get up and dance samba. When carnival time comes, samba is, Mari could dance samba, but I know she's a little shy. But anyway, this is a little samba. You might have heard this one. It was famous also here in the United States. Samba de Orfeo. You can dance if you feel like it. Yes. There's room right here. Huh? I'll take you to south of Paraguay, to Argentina, and that region is also much loved by my family because, well, my mother was born in Buenos Aires, and she was raised across the big River Plate in Uruguay, and so she grew up with that, what we call the River Plate culture. And they are kind of like the Italian, a strong Italian influence mixed with the Spaniards. They end up speaking Spanish in their own style. Che, ¿qué te pasa, primo? ¿Por qué no me llamaste por teléfono, loco? Te estoy hablando, no me dijiste nada, no? And they're great talkers, absolutely incredible. They're very eloquent people. I mean, I was intimidated every time I came to be with my cousins and my uncles. It seemed like they knew more about everything than I did, But then I found out as I grew up that everybody had a little joke about the Argentinians. All the other countries do, And one of the jokes is, you know why the Argentinians smile when there's lightning in the sky? They smile because they think God is taking pictures of them. Yeah, I know. I shouldn't make fun of the Argentinians, but my mom is one of them, so I can. So this is a sweet melody from Argentina. It's called Alfonsina y el Mar. It's one of their classic ones from a composer that has written a lot of beautiful music. They have a certain elegance and refinement that's very admirable in Argentina. My piano teacher, for example, would go and take lessons in Argentina from Paraguay. That was the Mecca. Buenos Aires was sort of the cultural Mecca for a lot of the Spanish-speaking world activities. So this is Alfonsina y el Mar. Alfonsina was a famous female poet who was also kind of a feminist avant-garde for her days, and died tragically in the ocean. Yeah. Thank you. Now I'm going to take you to the land of the mountains, to Peru. And there's a musical style that's very similar in many of the different, and we call the Andean countries, right? Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, northern Chile, and northern Argentina. This song is called Vírgenes del Sol, Virgins of the Sun. And it's one of my favorite melodies to play. I love it because I hear all these different styles, genres of music, or styles of music, or influences from different cultures mixed together. So we have a little bit of that lever that I have to raise there, and it creates kind of that Arabic style sound. As you know, the Arabs were in Spain for many years, right? 500 years or more. And so they left their influence in that territory. And then the Spaniards came and conquered the Americas. And obviously you hear a little bit of the classical music of the North. And then you hear a little bit of the drum beat of the native people of the Andes. And all these different styles of music from different people come together in this beautiful new composition, a new style, a new musical awareness in many ways. And I think it's beautiful because, the history of humanity is one group of people conquering another group of people. And there's always some resentment that always stays somehow in the air when you've been conquered by another group of people. And to be able to find at least a place where we find harmony in our different backgrounds is very beautiful. So this is Vírgenes del Sol. Thank you. I love it if people in the audience ask questions. So if you have any questions, feel free. Yes.
Do you play mostly with your fingernails or the pads of your fingers or both?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
Which one would you say is more your fingernails or your the pads?
It just depends. It depends on certain things. But both, they both are touching, actually, the string.
Okay.
The fingernail, what it does, just gives it that bright spark at the end. But the tremolo, for example, is a technique that you need a little fingernail. You can't do it without it, with a pad, to get that bright tremolo sound. Yeah.
Looking here at your harp right here,
Uh-huh.
it looks like there's like two, one on each side. Is that just one line of strings?
Just one line of strings.
It doesn't look like it from here, right?
The shadow's making the second line. Yes. Yeah, that's just the shadow. Yes.
How do you transport that thing?
This?
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of fragile.
Yeah. I have I'm driving right now. Yeah, but when I put a wooden frame so that the harp goes in a wooden frame, so the suitcases don't hit it or anything like that. So I protected it that way when I travel in the car. Plus, I make sure I save that space so that my wife's things don't take over the entire back of the car. Sorry, honey. I just had to throw a joke. Yeah. Yeah, this is made by a luthier in Paraguay. Yeah. Yeah, all handmade. These are all, handcrafted. Each harp sounds a little different. You never get the same harp ever again. Yeah.
When you said that there were 420 of that harp, you mean the luthier?
No. No. There are many luthiers in Paraguay. Many different, yeah. But yeah. This I meant by the Paraguayan harp. The Paraguayan harp. This harp, yeah. Because there's Celtic, there's all kinds of different harps in the world, but people playing this style of harp, yeah. Yeah, that's a question. After 40 years, you don't tell anybody anymore how long you've been playing. Is that good? Yeah. Yeah, I started when I was in my teens, yeah. 10, 11. In the back, yeah. I could probably play with my eyes closed, especially if I'm improvising. It would be okay. But yeah, when there's levers involved, I got to use my eyes. Yeah. Can I pick them and lower them? Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I haven't figured out how to do it. But yes, there's the Irish. There was a famous blind harper Irish, and so a lot of his compositions are based on someone who doesn't necessarily needs to see the strings. Yeah.
Speaking of the levers, you briefly went over it before, but you get
Two sounds. So. Yeah. See.
half notes.
They're like the black keys in the piano, kind of. That's the idea. Yeah. The half notes. Yeah. Yes.
Do you sometimes mix your harp music with some poetry or speaking?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I've done background music for storytelling a lot, and I also do storytelling while playing the harp too. I'll do it after the break. How about that? I'll play a couple more tunes and we'll have a little break, if that's good. Just in case people need to go to the restroom or things like that. Yeah, I'll play a couple of my original compositions for you. Okay, and this one is called "In Between the Branches," but it's in Spanish. We call it "Entre Ramas," and it's inspired on a friend of mine. He was in his late 80s when I visited him in France, and I was studying there, and he had a beautiful backyard with a huge cherry tree. And I went to visit him on a Sunday afternoon, and there he was up on the tree, and he looked like a little kid, even though he still had that kind of smile. You know what I mean? He was just strong as can be, but that kid look that he had with a smile on his face, I thought, man, that's so beautiful, that twinkle. So that's the memory I had. And when he passed away, this song came, and this is what I called it, In Between Branches, because entre ramas, he had one foot in one branch and one foot in the other branch. And this next song I wrote at the state fair when I was working in the state of Minnesota, and it's called "Passing By." I was working at a booth in the International Bazaar at the state fair. The Minnesota State Fair is known as being one of the bigger ones in the country, right? It competes with Texas to see who's the biggest. And the International Bazaar is just like crafts and things from all over the different parts of the world. And I had my CDs lined up, against the wall, and I had a little stage, and I would play there. But I realized that if I didn't play live, the 9 hours, nobody would turn around to see and be interested in CDs sitting on a counter. The Australian hats that were just across me were a lot more interesting. And so I started just playing nonstop, because, I paid to be there, so I had to sell as much as I could, that was sort of the deal. And, well, guess what? I got so tired of playing the same songs that I knew would sell music that I started improvising at some point. And this is the melody that came out. Now, it dawned on me that I saw, so many people were going by, right? But there was a little baby that came by in a stroller, and a second later, an old lady in a wheelchair. And because they were both on wheels, for me, it was like the symbol of the wheel of life, And I just said, wow, it went by so fast, And sometimes you suddenly realize that, oh, wow, it is going by fast, isn't it? I get the feeling that every year is a little faster than the year before. But it's beautiful to be alive and to be able to, reflect on it and say, hey, I love you, life. Let's keep passing by here. Well, we'll take a little break, a 10-minute, 15-minute little break, and we'll be back with the second half, with a little story for you. Okay. Yeah.
Welcome back in. We're excited to get going. Just so you know, I have adjusted the air so it won't be so cold in this. So we've got that adjusted. Hopefully it warms up pretty quickly for you. Is it up? And then I forgot to mention earlier, on the back of the brochure, maybe it's not on the back, is it? Oh, on the third or fourth page of the brochure, there is a QR code for 25% off the services, programs, and our gift shop. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, that's on there. Our contact info. So if you have any questions about the center or what we offer, you're welcome to ask, and we're happy to help. But once again, enjoy this beautiful concert. Are you guys loving it like I am? Oh, thank you so much here.
Well, I moved to New York with my wife in 2017, and I started looking for work as a musician, and I do a lot of programs in schools. And I got into an arts organization that started booking me, but a lot, in pre-Ks, kindergarten, and first grade. Now, you know that in those grades, a 45-minute program of just music just won't cut it, no? So I kind of took on the role of Mr. Rogers, no? And did a little bit of singing, a little bit of music, a little bit of singing, a little bit of dancing. And then after they were a little bit overly excited because of the dance, the teacher's kind of looking at me like, what are you doing with our kids? I would tell a story. And I made up this story. And this is a story about Hanish, the story of the harp. Because a long time ago, there were no harps in the world. No? Nobody knew how to play this instrument. Now, that was a very long time ago. It's hard to imagine what it was like in those days when there were no cars and no big buildings. There was no electricity with lights, no running water in those days. No. People lived in very simple homes in small villages. The walls were made out of mud. The roofs were made out of straw in those days. And if you were hungry and you wanted to eat some meat, well, you couldn't go to a supermarket to buy food. You had to go hunting. So this is a story of a family of hunters. And the youngest little boy was very special. His name was Hanish. Now every morning Hanish would wake up before his mom and his dad, and he would climb up a little hill right as the sun was rising. What a beautiful time of the day. You know why he loved this time of the day so much? Well, when the sun comes out, that's when the birds sing the most. And Hanish loved sounds. Call Mama Bird, responded baby birds. Call Papa Bird, responded baby birds. And everywhere Hanish walked, he would pause and listen to the sounds of nature. So if he walked by the creek, he would listen to the water rushing through the rocks. And if he walked by the flowers, he could listen to the bees buzzing. And one day he climbed up a tree just to listen to the chorus of leaves singing with the wind. Right when he was in the tree, he heard the voice of his father calling him from a distance. Hanish, come down, son. Today is a big day. I'm going to take you hunting for the first time. And look, I made a nice little bow and arrow just for your size. Come on down, son. Hurry up. I'm going to teach you everything I know. And someday you're going to become a great hunter like me and your grandfather. But little Hanish was not excited about going hunting. He did not like seeing dead animals. So he turned around, he looked for his mother. He says, "Mom, do I have to go?" And she whispered very firmly, "Go with your father and your brothers now." So he grabbed that little bow and arrow and off he went. Down the narrow paths of the village and into the hills. And they walked and walked down the hills into the woods until they arrived by a big river. There was a lot of green grass. And they hid behind a tree. "Shh," whispered the father. "Don't make any sound. You're going to scare the animals." So they waited and waited until finally a deer came closer and closer where they were hiding. Now the father whispered, "Okay, boys, get those bows and arrows ready. Pull." Now as the deer was bending his head to take a drink of water, now the father was the tallest. He was the biggest, the fastest, and he was the first to let go of his arrow. Pluck! This sound echoed. Now that was followed by the bow and arrow of the older brother. It was a little bit shorter than the father. It sounded more like this. Pluck! That was followed by the bow and arrow of the middle brother. It was a little shorter. It sounded like this. Pluck! Well, Hanish forgot about the hunt. He was listening to these sounds, and they all looked at him and said, "Come on, Hanish, let go of your arrow." Now, he had a tiny little bow and arrow, and his sounded more like a plick. Well, they caught that deer, and they had to carry it all the way back home. Can you imagine, with no pickup trucks in those days? That was a tough walk. So by the time they got home, little Hanish was so tired, he went straight to bed and started to dream. Now in this dream, he could see a bow with many strings. Yeah, there were 7 strings, 7 colors, 7 different sounds. Just like the rainbow, here they were. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and back to red. When he woke up, he was so excited. He ran to tell his mother about this dream. He had something in mind that he wanted to make that day. And right then, he heard the voice of his father. "Hanish, are you ready? We're going hunting again today." "Oh, no. Mom, I don't want to go hunting. I want to make my project." His mother said, "Calm down. Pretend you're sick. And when everyone is gone, you may begin." "Owie, my stomach doesn't feel good. Owie. Oh, I guess Hanish is not doing well. Oh, yes, dear. Yesterday's walk was maybe too much for him. I'll have to make some tea." So he waited in bed until everyone was gone. And when it was silent, he sneaked out. He went to his father's workshop and grabbed all the strings he could find and a bow stick. And he started tying one string next to the other. A long one next to a shorter one, next to a shorter one, next to a shorter one, and the shortest one he could get. Ladies and gentlemen, a bow with a row of strings was the first idea of a harp. But a bow with strings and no sound box was a little bit dry. Nevertheless, note by note, he wrote his first song. Well, with time, he figured out that if he added a sound box, he could get a much better sound. Well, off he went into the woods. Instead of hunting for animals, he hunted for their sounds and wrote music. Remember the birds? Remember the bees? beautifully. It was a full moon, and people came out from their homes to listen. And those who were a little bit sad, after listening to some music, they felt better. And there was someone with a headache, and after listening to his music, he felt better. And there was someone that was very angry that day, but after listening to the music, he also felt better. Even his father came out and asked him, "Honey, what is that?" "It's a harp. It came from a dream." So instead of becoming a hunter like his father, he became known as the harper. And he traveled to faraway lands, and he played for kings and for queens. And he played for the rich merchants. And some days he played for beggars on the street. Some days he plays for the sick. One day he found a little girl who was smiling, radiant. And he asked her, "Would you like to learn to play?" She said, "Yes. I'll teach you everything I know." And he gave her a little harp. Now that's how the harp was passed on from one person to the next. And now today we have harps all over the world. They come in all sizes and all shapes, all colors. But they have one thing in common, that the music of the harp opens the hearts of people. Now, if you look carefully, you will notice that the harp has the shape of a heart. Thank you. This life story, you only live it once. But I have an illustrated storybook version of it. So, yeah, that's the... Yeah, well, the storyteller always does his own thing at every time he tells a story. It's never the same as reading a book, right? You add things here and there just to embellish it depending on the audience. When I was in the Bronx, I told a shorter version of this story. But with you guys, I really went off all the way. I milked every moment I had, Yeah. So I don't want to take too much more of your time, because I had a theater professor that told me, "Nicholas, it's always good to leave the audience wanting more." So I'm very grateful for being here. I'm very grateful for this space. This space is in many ways sacred, and the harp fits well in spaces that are destined for healing, for love, for goodness, I guess. No? So thank you for was a last minute, arrangement. I just said I could be through Boise on Tuesday, and they said, "We'll do it. We'll make it happen." So thank you for opening your doors and allowing us all to be here. I'll play a last song that I composed, and I call this Camino de la Libertad, On the Road to Freedom. And I always thought there's some moments in life where you feel trapped, but they're good moments for me because I always write good music when I feel trapped. But I felt the opening of a new freedom, I guess, in my life at one point, and this is what the title refers to. And maybe you'll sense it as you hear the song.